In our world of big names, curiously, our true heroes tend to be anonymous. This quote resonates deeply when we think about Bletchley Park, a place that was once shrouded in secrecy missions played out in the heart of England. Bletchley Park was a British government cryptological operation, a haven for brilliant minds who dedicated themselves to the science of codes and ciphers. It was here that the heroes of anonymity emerged, including the legendary Alan Turing, to decode the German enemy's most closely guarded secrets. It is estimated that Turing's work shortened the war by 2 to 4 years and saved 14 million lives. Cracking the code was a silent victory for the war hero who never ever wore a military uniform. His accomplishments go far beyond the recognition they received at the time. The early stages of World War II saw significant advantages for the Germans in terms of naval intelligence. The German Naval Intelligence Service had effectively penetrated British naval codes. This provided the Germans with crucial information about the positions and movements of British warships. As a result, the German Navy could anticipate and counter British naval operations most effectively. This advantage was crucial in the Battle of the Atlantic, where control over shipping routes was vital for both sides. The work at Bletchley Park, particularly on cracking the Enigma code, played a pivotal role in shifting the balance of power. Britain stood almost alone against Hitler and defeat seemed inevitable. British cities were bombed and battered. In the Atlantic, German U-boats were wreaking havoc and inflicting heavy losses on Allied shipping. At that stage, surrender seemed only weeks away. But Churchill, being the visionary leader he was, had a secret weapon. He launched a topmost secrecy project at a relatively unknown building at Bletchley Park, about an hour's drive from London. It was the most curious and innovative military establishment anywhere in the world. Recruits were from a variety of fields like crossword fanatics, chess champions, mathematicians, outstanding students and professors from Oxford and Cambridge universities, all driven by one common aim: to smash the mighty German Enigma machine codes at the earliest. Bletchley Park project was codenamed Station X, being the 10th secrecy operations station of the British Intelligence Service. With time, Station X had become the largest code-breaking establishment the world had ever seen until then. But the success of the code-breaking operation soon led to a surge in personnel, with approximately 10,000 individuals employed at the operation's peak in 1944. The whole operation kept successfully secret from not just the Germans, but from the British people too. Even the locals living around the Bletchley did not know what was going on. Secrecy success was fully aided and supported by staff at Bletchley Park who successfully sold the narrative to the locals that the place was actually a lunatic asylum. Helen Andrews, who arrived from South America, was one of the youngest at Bletchley Park. So brilliant a mathematician at 17, her family had been told that she had a place at Cambridge. Only at age 92 did she started talking about her experiences in an interview to BBC in December 2019. Prior to Turing's invention, the machines in use were dependent on manual inputs. For security reasons, these devices changed settings every 24 hours, with 159 possible combinations every day. The staff worked around the clock to break the settings by hand. It was said to be boring and oppressive work, with mostly women running the machines during long shifts in dark, stuffy rooms. Turing's invention helped staff to decode quickly and pass on intelligence, usually with enough time for it to be acted upon. Intelligence uncovered prior to the Battle of El Alamein in 1942 contributed to victory in that Egyptian campaign, which in turn proved to be a turning point in the war. There are several other examples that the use of bombs in intelligence gathering had a huge impact across many land, sea and air campaigns. The German battleship Bismarck was located with the assistance of Enigma decrypts and sunk by air and surface attack in 1941. Later, in 1944, Enigma decrypts provided details of German defensive preparations for, and reactions to the D-Day invasion. Bletchley Park remained Britain's most profound secret for over 30 years post-World War II. Encircled by towering fences crowned with barbed wire and guarded by vigilant sentinels, the estate was a fortress of mystery. The legacy of Turing's creation is that his bombs were the first mass production of a specially designed cryptanalytical machine. They heralded the industrialization of code-breaking and the intelligence. Becky Webb, at 90, recalled the daunting task of signing the Official Secrets Act at the tender age of 18 in 1941. The gravity of the act was overwhelming for someone as inexperienced as I was, she recounts. The thought of adhering to such a commitment was beyond my comprehension. Margaret Bullen, who at 88 years old reflects on her time as a machine wire operator from 1942. She narrates her induction into the war effort. A cryptic call summoned me to contribute to Britain's war efforts from within the country. Following an enigmatic interview arranged by the Foreign Office, I found myself en route to Bletchley, unaware of the role I was about to play. Young girls were whisked away from their anonymous village lives. Bullen also recounts her wartime lodging. I was billeted with a couple mandated to house me. They, nor anyone else, ever inquired about my clandestine work. Not even the local villagers who witnessed a sudden influx of youngsters but remained silent over our coffee breaks. The essence of the covert mission that was the lifeblood of Bletchley Park was a chapter in history where silence was the unspoken oath and secrecy the unwavering guardian. While figures like Alan Turing have become synonymous with Bletchley Park, it's essential to remember other unsung heroes who played vital roles in the shadows. Among them were a group of motorcycle dispatch riders who risked their lives to transport transcripts of encoded German transmissions from radio receivers across southern England to Bletchley Park. In an era when radio and telephone transmissions could be intercepted, motorcycles were considered a more secure means of communication. At the start of the war, the British government launched an appeal for motorcyclists to volunteer as dispatch riders. The response was so massive that every regional centre had more applicants than places. Given job requirements, the preference was for 500cc single-cylinder machines, and the horizontally opposed double-cylinder. By 1940, all of the British Navy's dispatch riders were women. It was a dangerous job, delivering intelligence and orders from headquarters to military bases all over the UK, often in extreme weather like heavy rain, strong winds and snow-covered roads. Once decoding was done at Bletchley, riders would hurtle up and down the motorways and other roads to the War Office in London and other locations all over the country. At one time, an estimated 400+ dispatch riders would enter or leave Bletchley Park every day. Over 100 of these brave women, who made up the entirety of the British Navy's dispatch riders by 1940, were killed in service to their country. Another important role in World War II intelligence operations was played by pigeons. Thousands of pigeons, in fact there were 250,000 pigeons in the National Pigeon Service during World War II. There's a room wall in Bletchley Park, dedicated to photos of pigeons who became well known to servicemen for their brave feats. Pigeons were flown back from front lines carrying important messages. Arrived home, a bell would ring alerting the soldier on duty who would retrieve the message and forward it to its destination by telegraph or a private phone line. The pigeons were therefore enemy targets, and many were killed in the line of duty. Theirs was a risky job too. The Mocker completed 52 missions without a scratch before getting wounded. Pigeon, Cher Amy, was injured, losing its foot and one eye, but still managed to deliver a message because of which a group of American soldiers was rescued. One of the most famous war pigeons was G.I. Joe, from the United States Army Pigeon Service. He saved around 1,000 British soldiers by delivering an important message, which saved a village in Italy from being bombed. In 1946, G.I. Joe was awarded a medal for gallantry and was credited for the most outstanding flight made by a United States Army homing pigeon in World War II. The facts recorded at Bletchley Park places all pigeons in a much more admirable image than one would normally have about pigeons before learning about their war heroics. When the war ended, staff working in the night shift in Hut 6, based in Block D at Bletchley Park, were amongst the first people in the world to learn of the formal surrender of Germany in the early hours of the 7th of May 1945. Head of Hut 6, Stuart Milner Barry, wrote in the Hut 6 history. The final message of surrender, signed by George of Dönitz and Keitels, sent in the small hours of May 7th, came both to the control and registration rooms and was known all over the hut on the night shift. I think that my appeal to all staff was that the news should not be passed to the next day's shift was honoured in full. The first news the next shift heard was in the public announcement after lunch on the German wireless. The most fascinating aspect is that, despite all the focus on machines, it was ultimately human ingenuity that made the difference. While the machines had the capability to logically decode the encrypted German messages, it was the Bletchley Park team that achieved the breakthrough through educated guesses and intuitive insights into key or suspicious words present in the messages. Alan Turing, whose contributions to the war effort were nothing short of monumental, tragically met a fate marked by injustice. In a time when homosexuality was illegal in the UK, Turing was convicted for his sexual orientation, a fact that overshadows his groundbreaking work. Turing was convicted of having sexual relationship with another man. He offered no defense, saying he saw nothing wrong in his actions. He died from cyanide poison. His life tragically ended at a very young age. Turing reportedly had an IQ of 185. Eventually, the grave injustice meted out to Turing was acknowledged when Gordon Brown issued an unequivocal apology on behalf of the government to Alan Turing. He described Turing's treatment as horrifying and utterly unfair, and added that the country owed the brilliant mathematician a huge debt. He was proud to offer an official apology. "We're sorry, you deserved so much better," he added. Without his outstanding contribution, the history of World War II could well have been very different. The debt of gratitude he is owed makes it all the more horrifying, therefore, that he was treated so inhumanely. More recently, June 21, 2021, the Bank of England governor announced a new £50 note featuring Alan Turing. Rollout of the notes started 2 days later, on June 23. Sadly, for Turing it all came too late. His criminal record meant he was unable to continue his work for the UK Government Communications Headquarters, GCHQ, because his security privileges were withdrawn. 2 years later he killed himself, aged 41. Pendulum's full swing. A principle named enantiodromia was floated in the writings of Heraclitus, in the 5th century. In brief it states, when things get to their extreme, they turn into their opposite. 16 centuries later, enantiodromia expressed itself in the most emphatic manner possible. Bletchley Park, once the venue of unparalleled secrecy for around half a century, suddenly became top global headline news. It made history once again by hosting the world's first artificial intelligence (AI) safety summit on 1 and 2 November 2023. Global leaders and industry professionals came together at this groundbreaking event. There can be few examples, if any, of the pendulum swinging from ultimate secrecy to organized global publicity.